Okay, so we're into the C grade questions now. 5 identical rectangles fit together as shown. What is the total area which they cover? Write down the units of your answer. Because it's specifically telling you to write down your units, there is 1 mark for that. Okay, if you don't do it, if you don't write it down, you're going to lose a mark even if all your good maths is correct. Right, so we know that each of these rectangles are identical, so they've all got the same width and the same length. And we can use that fact to work out what the width and length is of each rectangle. I know that the total length of these two side by side is 18, which means because they're identical, that must have a length of 9 and that one must have a length of 9. And I know that these 3 laid side by side like this also have a total of 18 and they're identical, so they must be 6 and 6 and 6. Okay, and I'm not writing down the maths, but because I'm marking it on the square, the grid, the examiner knows exactly what I'm doing. So, in order to work out the area, I need to know what this distance is here, because I know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. Now, what I have here is a rectangle that's the length of the rectangle, which is 9. And I know that this is the width of the rectangle, which is 6. So the total going that way is 15 centimeters. So the area will be 15 times 18, which is 270. And as I mentioned at the start of the question, you have to write down the units. The units, if the lengths are in centimeters, the units of the area would be centimeters squared. So in order to get those 6 marks, you're going to get 1 mark for the units. You're going to get 1 mark for correctly working out our lengths and widths of the rectangles. So you're going to get 1 mark for working out the 6, 1 mark for working out the 9. You're going to get 1 mark for then establishing the 15, 1 mark for the area, and 1 mark for the, 1 mark for the 9, 1 mark for the 6, 1 mark for the area, 1 mark for the 270, 1 mark for the units. Okay, some more complicated equations now. When you're working with brackets, you need to multiply the bracket out, and in doing so you multiply the number outside by every term that's inside. So the first thing we've got to do here is 4 times 6x, which is 24x. Then we have to do 4 times negative 7. 4 7s are 28. That's a plus because there's no negative, so it's plus times a minus is a minus. 4 7s are 28 equals 32. Now what we need to do is get the x on its own. The first thing you need to get rid of is the negative 28. How do you get rid of that? By adding 28. If you add 28 to this side, you have to add 28 to that side as well. So 24x, 28 is gone because I've added 28, but that means I've got to add 28 there as well. 24x equals 60. And then to get the x on its own, the 24 and the x are joined by a multiply. So in order to undo a times by 24, I have to divide by 24. Divide that side by 24, I've got to do the same there. In algebra, divide is over. So coming back onto the screen here, we've got 60 divided by 24 which is 5 over 2 or 2.5. With an inequality, on the higher tier they can be quite complicated. Pretty much on a foundation tier question you can treat this exactly the same as the equation above. First of all, I have to deal with a negative 7. I get rid of that by adding 7. If I add 7 to one side, I have to add 7 to the other side as well. So I have 4x is less than 12. To break the 4 and the x up, I have to undo the multiply by dividing by 4. In algebra, that means that, which means x must be less than 3. The difference between an equation where I'm using the equal sign and the inequality where I'm using a less than sign is my answer to that. That's the only value that satisfies that equation. X must equal 2.5. With an inequality, what this is saying is any value of x less than 3 satisfies that. So x is 2, x is 1, x is 0, etc, etc, etc. This is an indices question. M cubed means m times itself 3 times. M times itself 3 times, sorry, not 3 there. And m4, m to the power of 4, means m times itself 4 times. And what we're doing is multiplying those terms together, which means what I'm ending up with is m times itself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So m to the power of 3 times m to the power of 4 is m to the power of 7. Okay, so marks for that. Up here you get 1 mark for clearing out the bracket. You get 1 mark for getting down to 24x equals 60 and 1 mark for, you could leave it as 60 over 24, that would be fine, or turn it into that would be okay as well. For this you get 1 mark for correctly getting down to 4x is 12 and 1 mark for the answer, and for this question you get the mark for m equals 7, and that's that. Question 16. A number of beans in each of 200 packets were counted. The table below shows the summary of the results. So what I suggest you do when you're given a table like this is make sure first of all you know what the information in the table is telling you. So if we just pick this second one here, in the context of this question, this is saying that 42 of the packs that were counted had between 39 and 57 beans in them. 50 of the packs that were counted had between 58 and 76 beans in them, and so on. One of the packets is selected at random. What is the probability that it contains 20 to 38 beans? Well, from the table, 30 packets contained 20 to 38, and when we talk probability we talk fraction, and the fraction is going to be the number of packets that have got 20 to 38 beans in out of the total number of packets that we were dealing with, which is 200. And you can leave it like that. There's no need to turn it into a percentage or cancel it down. That is fine. For 58 to 95 beans, well, 50 packets had 58 to 76, 78 had between 77 and 95. So 58 to 95 is both of those as chances. So that is going to be 128. And it's probability again, so that's out of 200. Which is the modal group for the number of beans per packet? Mode, most frequent. What occurs most frequently? Well, what you need to do is look at your table and see which group happens the most. The group that happens the most is the 77 to 95. The common mistake here would be to write 78 as your answer. 78 you are using to tell you which group comes up more often. So the actual group is the 77 to 95. 1 mark for 30 over 200, 1 mark for the 128, one mark for the probability being correct. Sorry, too many marks there. So 1 mark for the 128, 1 mark for the correct probability, and 1 mark for the right modal group. Then what we have to do is to draw a grouped frequency polygon to show the distribution. Now, a group frequency chart would be a bar chart. A group frequency polygon is plotted on the midpoints. And again, that's something that you need to know. So, first of all, we've got to get the axis right. We need to go up. The biggest value is 78. So what we want to try and do is to use the full size of the graph paper that they printed for us. So if we've got to go up from 0 to 78, I'm going to go up 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So that will be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and that axis is number of packets. On this scale, I've got to go up as far as 95. So again, I'm going to go up 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Zero, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So the first thing I need to plot on the midpoints. So if this was a bar chart, then you would be drawing your line from 20 to 38. And each little square here is going to go up in twos, isn't it? 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. So we're going up in twos. So if it was a bar, if it was a frequency, group frequency diagram, then you would be drawing your bars. If you're not sure, then draw those in anyway. It won't do you any harm so long as you still do that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll do both and then we can see what the difference is. So if I draw the bars in green, my first bar is going up to 30 and it's starting at 20 and going to 28. So it's going up to 30, which is there. And 38, which is just in one square from 40. So that would be the first bar. Now the frequency polygon is plotted at the midpoint of the top of that bar. So if it's going from 20 to 38, halfway is going to be 29. So it's going to be at there. Okay, then the next bar is going from 39 to 57 and it's going to go to a height of 42. So 42 would be there. And the easiest thing to do now would be to actually work out what the midpoints are. The quickest way to work out midpoints is to add together and divide by 2. So I've already done the first one. 29. The next one, 39 add 57, 48. The next one, 58 add 76. Oops. Divide by 2, 67, and 77 add 95, 86. So these midpoints are where I'm going to be plotting my points. So again, if it was a group frequency diagram, we would be carrying on with the bars. It's a group frequency polygon, so it's these midpoints at the top of where the bars would be that I'm going to draw my graph. So I'm going to stop drawing the bars now. So 48 is my midpoint, and 42 is where I'm going to be plotting the point. So 48 is there, 42 is there. So the next one is 67, 50. So 60 is there, 50 is there, 57 is there. Then my next final one is 86, 78. So 86 across, 78 up. 78 is there, 86 is there. And then you join those up using a ruler. So the green line is a group frequency polygon. If I'd have carried on drawing bars, that would be a group frequency diagram. If you'd have just done bars, you would lose a mark here. Okay? So 3 marks there are for plotting the midpoints, 1 for joining up, 1 for all correct. Okay, question 17, utility bills. Lots of examples of this in the topic-based section on my website. Remember, all these questions now are grade C questions. Mrs. Ridgely is considering changing her electricity supplier from Beeline Utilities to domestic utilities. She usually uses 2,400 units each year. She has found the following information. Should Mrs. Ridgely change her supplier? So what we need to do is, first of all, use this fact that this is how much electricity she uses and work out what that would come to with Beeline, apply the same thing to domestic and see which one is most expensive. So first of all, then, we're going to work with Beeline. So I'm going to write that down so that they know what I'm doing. So for a year, the standing charge is 15.07 pence per day. Change it into pounds. 15.07 pence per day is going to be, if it was 15 pence in pounds, that would be 0.15. So this is going to be 15 pence in pounds, 0.1507. 11 pence would be 0.11, so this would be 0.1151. In pounds, this one would be 0.1582, and this would be 0.1132. So Beeline, the standing charge, doesn't matter how much electricity she uses, every day she's with this company, it's going to cost her that much a day. And over a year, that's going to be 365 times 0.1507, which comes to 365 times 0.1507, 55, and we're still in pounds, and that's going to be, and if we write it down, 0055, and we'll round up when we finished the rest of the maths. So basically it's going to cost a £55 a year standing charge, and then the number of units, cost for units, and that's going to be the 2,400 she uses multiplied by 0.1151. Okay, so 2400 times 0.1151, 27624. So the total bill with Beeline would be the sum of those. So you're going to do 27624 plus 55.0055, and then we're going to round this to the nearest penny. So it's going to be £331, and then it's either going to be 24 or 25. The fact the next one is 5 or above means that that is closer to 25. So it's going to be £331.25. Then we do the same thing again, but this time now with domestic utilities. Standing charge will be number of days, 365, but this time multiplied by 0.1582. Okay, so 365 times 0.1582, 57.743, and we'll do the rounding at the end. Cost per unit, well, she's going to use 2,400, and with this company each unit is going to cost that much, 0.1132. So 0.1132 times 2,400, 271.68. Total bill is going to be adding 271.68 to 57.743. Round up to the nearest penny, 329.42. The next digit is less than 5, so it's nearest to 42 pence. £329.42. So Mrs. Ridgely should use domestic utilities because it costs her less. Okay, so you've worked out the two, you've made the comparison, and you've made that decision. Okay, so how are the marks awarded for that? You would get a mark for making sure that you are using everything in the right units. You will get a mark for working out the total bill and the method you used for Beeline. You would get again the mark there, and then you would get 2 more marks then for correctly choosing the right company. 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, so you got a mark for working in the right units, a mark for the total bill, 2 marks for the total bill for Beeline, 2 marks for the total bill for domestic utilities, and then 2 marks for coming up with the correct judgment. Oh, there's a bit more to this question. Mrs. Ridgely finds out later on that VAT of 5% is payable on the cost of the standing charge and the units used. Would this affect her decision? You must give a reason for your answer. And the reason is that 5% of that and 5% of that would mean that the difference would be the same once that's been added on. It's not going to make any difference. That would only become different if it was 5% at Beeline and say 6% at domestic utilities. If the percentage applied to both of them with the same percentage, then whatever the difference is before, it'll be the same after. So no, it won't affect her decision because same percent is applied to both companies. Okay. Compound percentages. Again, there's a chunk of work on compound percentages in the topic area of Jones the Sum. Two ways of going about it. I think a foundation tier, the method I'll show you now, is the most straightforward. Aaron bought a bike for £600 on the 1st of February 2010. Every year the value of his bike depreciates by 12%, so it's dropping by 12%. Find the value of his bike on the 1st of February 2012. So at the end of 1st of February 2010, it's that. So the 1st of Feb 2011, it will lose 12% of that. If it loses 12% of that, then it's going to be worth 88% of that. Okay, so 88%, because it's, if that's 100%, 12% less is going to be 88%. 88% as a decimal is 0.88 multiplied by 600 would give you 0.88 times 600, 528 pounds. So at the end of 1 year, it's now worth 528 pounds. Another way of working that out would have been to find 12% of that, which would be 0.12 times that, and then take that away from the 600. But if you can think of it like this, it saves that step out. He then has it for another year, and it's going to lose another 12%. But this time, it isn't going to lose 12% on the 600 value, it's going to lose 12% on the 528 value. So on the calculator, I've still got my 528 there. So I'm going to do 528 times 0.88, 46464. Okay, so that's what the value of its bike will be after 2 years. If the question asked you how much has it lost over 2 years, then you would take that away from £600. So you need to read these questions carefully to make sure. Sometimes they'll ask you how much it's lost, sometimes they'll ask you what's its value. So 4 marks for that, 2 for the end of the first year, 2 for the end of the second year. Up there you get 1 mark for the correct explanation of the effect of that 5%. And then the final question on this foundation tier paper is an area question which combines areas of squares and also areas of circles. So a circular photograph is placed in a square frame as shown in the diagram. The diameter of the circular photograph is 8 centimeters. Diameter, you need to know, is the distance across the center of the circle. So basically, if the diameter of that circle is 8, then the length of that square is 8 as well. So what that means is I've got 8 centimeters by 8 centimeters square. So I can work out the area of the square. So the area of square frame is 8 times 8 equals 64. Now you could put the units in there. This question doesn't tell you you have to write the units. So if you put incorrect units, it wouldn't affect your marks. If you put no units, it won't affect your marks. Now, I now need to work out what the area of that circle is. And you need to know that the formula for the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. The radius, if the diameter is 8, the radius is the distance from the center of the circle out, which will be half of the diameter. So the radius will be 4. Pi times 4 squared. On your calculators, you can type that in exactly as you see it. Okay, your pi button, if I can just fit this on, the pi button is in yellow above the times 10. To get to the yellow, you're going to do shift. So on my calculator, I can type that in exactly as I see it. Pi, there it comes, times r is 4, squared is the x squared button there. Okay, so what I've written and what I've typed on my calculator are identical. Then press your equals button and that will give you an answer which is still in terms of pi. You press the S to D and that will turn that into 50 point. Let's go to 1 decimal place. 1 decimal place is 2, but the next digit over is bigger than 5, so that's closer to 3. So 50.3. So the shaded area is going to be the area of the square which is 64, less the white, which is the area of the circle, which is 50.3. On your calculator, that is still there, okay, as your previous answer. So if you now just do 64, take away ants, that's saying 64 take away what was on your screen just now, because I haven't pressed all clear. Press equals, there's your answer. And to 1 decimal place, that's going to be 13.7. Next digit's less than 5, so it stays 13.7. And I'm going to put my units in there anyway because it's good practice, but there's no marks for it. Okay, so you have 5 marks for that question. You're going to get 1 mark for the area of the frame. You're going to get 2 marks for working out the area of the circle. You're going to get 1 mark for the subtraction and 1 mark for your final answer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's it. That's the 100 marks for that paper.